Welcome to the True Northing podcast with Kristen and Allison. We're going to explore the topic of selfishness today. Selfishness, self worth, what that means, the taboo around being selfish, putting yourself and your needs first, and where we find balance and health. Of course, people pleasing plays into kind of the opposite of the spectrum of selfishness. And so we're going to share a bit about, for us, our journey, what it's been, our thoughts on it, and just explore the topic. I was thinking that I can really identify the first moment that I started people pleasing, that I started thinking in a different way about myself and selfishness and living for others and what others thought about me instead of myself. I was a teenager. I don't remember, maybe I was around 16 or so. And I remember a family member, actually, yeah, a family member calling me selfish and saying that their friend thought I was selfish too. And I just remember like feeling this drop in the pit of myself of like, oh my gosh, they think I'm selfish. It just felt so big to me to be called selfish and to be considered selfish. And it just changed the way that I started thinking about myself, started acting, started thinking about how other people thought about me. And from that point on, I decided that I never wanted to be selfish again. And that I really desperately did not want to be selfish or seen in that way. And so I became really hyper aware of myself and whether I was thinking about myself or others, and that it was like a wound for me. And so if I had done anything that would be like considered selfish from that point forward, I just was afraid. I was afraid to do anything that would get me labeled selfish. And so I love this topic because then now, as we're considering more about self care and, you have to put your own oxygen mask before others and the consequences of people pleasing. And in other episodes, we've talked about like being your authentic self. Like, I love this exploration of that, the difference between self care versus selfishness and putting yourself first in a healthy way. And the way that I love to consider it too is being full of yourself, right? Selfishness. Oh, you're so full of yourself. But no, like, there's this other way to consider it. Like, you are so full of you.
Hmm.
You're full of your own energy, your own worth. You're full of your own needs and wishes and desires and truth. And so let's talk about it.
I love that so much. That's so powerful to be able to connect to the moment, the wound, when you decided that you were not going to be selfish.
Mhm.
I have noticed people tend to use that word as a weapon when somebody's making a choice that is uncomfortable for them or inconveniences them. Then they tell the other person that they're being selfish. By taking care of your
Mhm.
needs and doing what is right and true for you, I'm feeling uncomfortable. And so it's kind of like a way of shaming the person for putting their needs first or for making whatever choice they've decided to make, so that we can shame them into walking back their decision or making a different choice or feeling guilty about their choice.
It's such a good word to use, weapon. And it's so true. It does feel like a weapon too when it's used against you. And that really speaks to this kind of collective thought we have about selfishness and putting yourself first, especially when it doesn't align with this kind of cultural norm or community norm or like shared agreement in family of what the expectation of behavior is. And I think that oftentimes for those who have been kind of shamed into people pleasing, it's so threatening to see somebody not doing that, that we don't even know what to make of it. And so it's like you're not sacrificing yourself. Well, that's not okay. I didn't get to live my life, so you sure as hell can't. Right. And yeah, what needs to shift? Something that, like something's got to shift around that.
Well, that's interesting. You bring up the projection piece. So maybe using the word selfish when that enters the conversation, it says more about the person using the word than the person they're aiming it at. It says
Mhm.
something about
Yeah.
their own definition of what is okay and acceptable when it comes to taking care of yourself and your own needs.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah, it's basically saying like I wasn't able to do that, so you sure as hell can't.
Yeah, and there
And
are
that's not safe.
right. And there are times when it might feel appropriate if, say, somebody is so okay, not primarily, but maybe solely concerned about their needs. Like there's a lack of consideration for the other. What do you think about that?
Mhm. Yeah, I mean there's certainly people that that word is applicable for in a way that maybe they're totally disregarding others or they're causing harm to others or they're using people in a way that's really inconsiderate. I mean, that the term certainly can apply some places, I'm sure, for people who are so self absorbed in narcissistic tendencies or ways. So we're really speaking to this kind of general idea and not disregarding that that's a real thing. We're talking about selfishness when it's used appropriately, not used appropriately, or used to induce shame or to make somebody not be able to really follow their own path or be who they are or speak their truth or take care of themselves.
I think we tend to single out women too. I would guess that women receive that more often than men are told that they are selfish because perhaps women are culturally viewed as those who are supposed to be give to others and supporting the needs of others, mothering. Like the mother is supposed to
Mhm.
be selfless and care about everybody's needs. And the mother who puts everyone's needs before her own gets a lot of praise typically for being so
Mhm.
selfless. Like that is highly
Mhm.
valued in our society when we think about mothers.
Mhm. You're so right. That is such a praised quality is to be selfless and to always put others before yourself, especially for moms and for women. And yeah, I can notice that within myself nowadays. It's very different. I don't feel the same way, but I used to really feel that same way of like, wow, like look at them. They're so self-sacrificing. They're so self-sacrificing and they're willing to go out of their way to do anything for anyone and really like yeah, care for anybody else at the sake of themselves. And now I see that and I'm like, "Oh man, that's not healthy. That's not good. How's that woman doing? How's that mom doing? She can't be doing well." or she won't be doing well. I think about that. And that's not to say that like being of service is not a revered quality to have. Like I really think highly of being of service and caring for other people and loving your neighbor and supporting your community. Like, I think those are all really noble things to do and things that I strive for. But it's very different the way that I view it now, that it is not at the sake of my well being, or I can't compromise my health and my truth in order to do that.
Right. To be selfless, not having a self, to be self sacrificing comes at a cost. And so the other perspective is not only does it cost her or the selfless person, but it costs perhaps those around her that she cares most about, like her children. Because what are we modeling?
Mhm.
What are we teaching? That that you have to abandon yourself, that it's not okay to have needs. We're creating this image, we're perpetuating this image that this is what life is about. It's
Mm.
about not caring for yourself.
Mhm. Yeah, fascinating. Selfless or full of yourself. And yeah, what are we modeling? What are we teaching? But also, what was my thought there when you said, yeah, needs? Like we're expected, or people are expected not to have needs. And that just like blew my mind when you said that, of like how many women struggle to state their needs or their wants or their desires in life, like to enjoy, like not just to even have their needs met, right? Basic needs. Like if you, maybe that's okay to get your basic needs met. Maybe life is safe there, right? But for the woman who wants more, or wants more for herself, or more like more enjoyment in life, like now that's a little too much. That's
Yes.
selfish, like that scary territory. And so like maybe little by little we can keep expanding, and maybe not little by little, maybe big by big. We're expanding into claiming more.
Oh, I love this so much. Right. Not just getting your basic needs met, but actually like fully engaging, enjoying, participating in life. Like
Mm,
your life force energy, experiencing pleasure, experiencing joy, showing up for all that life has to offer.
yeah, getting to live and getting to thrive. It's just this morning, I like after my shower, I like lathered myself in this like delicious tallow, this like vanilla tallow that someone gifted to me. And I had like incense burning, and I like did some stretching and movement to these mantras, and it just like felt so good. And I was like, whoa, this was like more than just my basic needs. And I feel so good to give myself this extra. And I feel more than okay. Like, I think that there's this standard of like, if you're okay, then you're good. And yeah, I'm noticing that I'm having higher standards for myself lately and my experience of life.
Yeah, I want to be more than okay. That's
Yeah, I want to be
beautiful.
more than okay. Yeah, I wanna be good. I want, as you said, like, feel this, like, sensuality with life, feel connected, feel alive, feel my feelings, feel my desires, like, come out of. And I noticed in this practice this morning, I was like, "Whoa, I have been operating, like, I have, even if not even realizing it, just operating on this, like, do like, okay, I've got my morning drink, all these things that seemed like they were care, and they are, but wasn't so deeply nourishing. And I'm like, okay, this is food to me. Um, and yeah, as I give that to myself, then I am able to experience life. Just like we're not here to not have a self. We're not here to be completely void of any humanity. And yeah, what is there to explore through being full of yourself? And I love that, being full of myself, because being full of myself this morning meant that I could light the incense that I wanted. It meant that, like, I loved what my movement was like this morning. I was like moving to mantras and like doing different kind of like exercises within the mantra. And I was full of like what I felt connected to do. And that is such a beautiful way to live full of who you are, full of authentic self.
And the more we allow ourselves to engage with life in that way, and we increase our capacity for love and expansion and fully enjoying everything that life has to offer, the more as mothers we allow our children to open to that possibility as well. And not just our children, but the people around us. I mean, we are all energetic beings, and our energy influences the next person's energy, which influences the next person's energy, right? As we heal or become whole and fully alive, the more everybody else does. You invite others into that energy as well. What could be better than that? And in fact,
Mhm.
to me, that's the opposite of selfish, right? It's a gift. It's a gift that you're giving out.
Mhm. Totally. I saw Florence Pugh say something like, stop living from when you stop operating from people pleasing, you have to get used to people not being pleased. And I was like, whoa, she just said it within like, one little sentence there. And it was like, pow. And it was like, yeah, you have to understand that not everyone is going to be okay with that, be okay with who you are. And at the same time, it is a gift. It's a gift that maybe is not in the immediate, but it does have that ripple effect. And as you said, to our children, our friends, our family, perhaps even when they don't like it, or they don't see it, or they don't give themselves permission, maybe in some subtle ways, it does.
Right. Even when there's that initial discomfort and pushback, and the person might be calling you selfish and really looking at you in that way, perhaps uh, tomorrow or the next week or the next month or a little bit down the road, they are also being expanded by it. And
Mhm.
they're going, "Oh, wow, she was so bold to really claim her truth, or to really unapologetically step into this decision that she really wanted and that was true for her. Maybe I can claim a little bit of that for myself."
Mm. Mhm. Mhm. Yeah, and I guess, like, as we're kind of talking about the self-worth piece in terms of selfish, I I guess I wonder, I know we talked about this in a previous episode of, like, finding that balance, but it seems like when you're being really true and authentic and filling yourself up with goodness, that there's, like, a natural overflow of sharing. And there's like a natural overflow of giving versus it coming from a place of shame or should, or I don't, I'm not worthy enough to exist. And my whole existence is helping other people exist. I know that was one for me.
And people pleasers will really, well, one, they often pair up with somebody who's the opposite adaptation and who somebody who's maybe really good at self-care and taking care of themselves. And that is something that comes up a lot in couples where the people pleaser adaptation, the person who learned others come first, will get very triggered by their partner who maybe will let the dishes sit there so that they can go for a walk because they've had a long day, or who will really prioritize their self care before taking care of everybody else. They'll schedule that time. They'll go for the massage. They'll say, "Sorry, I can't cook dinner tonight. I'm exhausted. We need to do takeout." So the people pleaser often will not like that because they're not allowed to do that. They don't allow themselves to do that, to put themselves first, to prioritize their own needs. And so that's a common rub that we see there.
Yeah, and so if that's you, if you notice yourself being rubbed like, "Oh, no," like my partner's, whatever, sitting on the couch while I'm, you know, after work all day and I'm triggered by that, then it's a good message to be like, "Oh, what am I needing? Maybe I'm needing to give myself permission to rest," or maybe the partner's, yeah, really good at exercising or going to the gym and you're triggered by that. Like, it is a message for you to show what maybe your limitations are for caring for yourself, or your even beliefs and limitations. And so let it be for you, let it inform you of what you need and want more for yourself.
Such a good point. Yeah. Yeah. It's a signal to you. It's a signal to you about a need that you have. So, how can you meet your own need for that and ask for support around it if that's needed?
Mhm. Mhm.
So, there's another piece that feels a little bit connected that I'm thinking about, which is when we recognize a pattern, which might be that I tend to overgive in a situation. I tend to say I'm ending my relationship, and instead of splitting things 50-50, say we're married and we have assets, instead of splitting things 50-50, I tend to say, "You know what? You take 75, or you know what? You take all of it. You take all of it. I'm good. I really just want to take care of you." Right? Kind of, which isn't inherently bad. There can be all kinds of motivations for that, but maybe there is a real desire just to be kind and helpful and create ease for that person. Maybe it comes from love. And maybe I find myself in that situation a number of times. It's become a pattern that's my go-to. And even in situations where the other person is maybe not so kind. Maybe they're kind of manipulative. Maybe they're really taking advantage of me or the situation. Maybe they don't appreciate how much I'm giving. And yet this is just something I do. It's just feels kind of natural to me. And I continue to feel undervalued and taken advantage of. So maybe I'm recognizing for myself, all right, this does not feel so good to me anymore. Maybe this is happening at work or with a boss or something, some situation with somebody where they really are just taking and taking and taking. And I'm noticing a limit here. I'm noticing that actually it's not, I don't feel like being of service in this way. It feels like I'm abandoning my own needs here. So to break this pattern means I have to do something different, which might be saying no. Might be saying, actually, I'm going to claim what is mine here. I'm going to allow myself to be taken care of as well. You can be taken care of and I can be taken care of. And when it comes time to actually do that, to break the pattern, to say, okay, no, I'm going to be firm here. I'm going to stand up for myself. The other side of this that I see is a desire for ease and kind of surrendering. Like, you know what? I know I'm trying to break this pattern and I could do that, but that's really going to require a lot of my energy. I'm going to have to take all these steps and I'm going to have to be really firm and maybe it's going to create a conflict. And I just don't need that stress in my life. And so I kind of just want to take the easy route, which feels in a way maybe like self preservation. I'm going to save myself the energy
Mm.
that it's going to require in order to set this firm boundary and hold this firm boundary. So the problem there I see, and I really, I just want to explore it a little bit together, is that by both make sense, right? But by doing that, by taking the easier or more surrendered approach, I'm then perpetuating the pattern, right? I'm still
Mm.
showing up in the same way and enabling the situation and allowing myself to be taken advantage of, even though there's a piece of this that feels like it's really for my benefit because I will experience less stress. It actually
Mm.
is reinforcing the self-abandonment. So it's almost like if I want to break the pattern and really be in my self-worth, there has to be some discomfort there and some challenge. It's going to be because it's different. Is this making sense?
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. And I can totally see myself in that in certain points of my life where I just for the sake of peace compromised my own maybe needs or advocating for what I needed or wanted at the time, or really what would have been the right reciprocity to have. And just I think that's really common, and it's really interesting how you said it can reinforce that self-abandonment. And we had a teacher once, Greg, who talked about in his process and his sharing in his workshop talked about like taking 100% responsibility. And it was really interesting for me. There was this certain situation and time in my life where the light bulb kind of clicked. And I was like, 100% responsibility for me is not trying to change the other person's action or inaction or what they're doing or not doing to show up. 100% responsibility means that I am doing the hard thing, saying the hard thing, doing the hard thing, advocating for the right thing, because if I'm feeling taken advantage of, what am I? It's not based on the other person. Like I've allowed myself to get taken advantage of in some ways. And so at that point in my life, it was like, wow, I need to point the finger back at myself. And what do I need to do? What action do I need to take so that I don't feel used or bullied into something or hurt? And that is uncomfortable breaking out of that pattern for sure. And I see it oftentimes as like a pattern of codependency as well, that there's some way of keeping connection through the self-abandonment.
The 100% responsibility is such a big one. I'm so glad you brought that in. Right. It's like, regardless of what the other person is doing, I am 100% responsible for inviting this situation to show up. I'm 100% responsible for attracting this perfect situation for myself. And so, how can I be 100% responsible for shifting that? I love that.
Mhm. Yeah, I see it as like, if I don't like this situation, I am 100% responsible of how I'm going to respond to it and how I'm going to meet it and how I'm going to work with it versus the other person needs to change or what they're doing isn't okay, which could be true. And the other part of that is like, you don't have to agree with what's happening, but you still got to take responsibility. So it's, yeah, and 100% responsibility is not what the other person should do. It's what I need to do in terms of my response and my action. Yeah, just kind of wrapping up that piece of like, how do we not be no self or abandon ourselves, right? Selflessness, self abandonment, while still, yeah, having connection and self worth. And how do we do it in a way that's built on something authentic? And so um, I think this was really an amazing discussion on all that. And thank you so much.
Thanks, everyone. See you next week.